This conference will now be recorded.
Mike's here. 5 and 9, but it's a work session, so I don't know if we're not taking any. Yeah, but we will have 5.
You don't need a form for this.
Did you want
Yeah, I think it's 5 actually.
to? Well, we will have 5 here. So
I'm not. I don't know. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Yes, sir. Maybe I need to put down James's plaque. I don't see Mr. Graves. We'll slide this in there. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we're kind of thin on the ground here tonight. We've got Peter and Faye and Danny and James are not here. So fortunately, it's not we don't vote on anything tonight. So I guess we're semi-legal. All right. We do not have a quorum, but as we just said, it's not going to be an issue, I don't think. Is there any suggested changes, or is there an approval for the agenda as it stands?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we're just on the agenda. Okay.
But because you're not voting on anything substantive or even making recommendations tonight, it is appropriate for you to do.
Good. Too bad. But okay. Bring the cake with the hacksaw in it. Yeah. All right. Let's see. We have the minutes from the April 20th, 2022 meeting. Any questions or comments? We can't vote on minutes. Okay. Defer the minutes because no quorum. Okay. Okay. Before we start with our cases, we have heard that Mr. Shackelford, who was our county attorney for quite a while, has passed away. Is that correct? I'd like to call for just a moment of silence for a little while for that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
briefly on that, and I'm sure other people will speak at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Shaq was the Madison County attorney for 41 years. I don't hope to get anywhere near that. But he became the Madison County attorney, I think, in his second year of practicing law.
Mm-hmm.
And he stayed in that position until his horse riding accident. Had it not been for that accident, he would still be in Madison County attorney.
I'm sure, yeah.
As I had mentioned when I came in, I don't even pretend to fill the shoes. I'm just putting mine beside. We worked very hard for this county, and he truly loved Madison County. His house, he lived in Brampton, some of you are familiar with that, off of Forest Drive, which has been magnificently tarred and chipped over the last 2 years. You know, he spent most of his time there, and Madison County was truly comfort.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Was this long or sudden?
The incident, as I understand it, was kind of chronic. It was just a matter of time. I think officially it was sepsis,
Mhm.
but that happens when you have, you know, general weakness coming in. That said, I'm surprised that anything could kill him. I mean, he broke his neck and broke his back and he came back. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Before we begin looking at the cases, I was reminded at our last joint meeting that it would probably be a good idea to go back to the practice of mentioning our procedures in case there were questions from the public. We would have cases presented by the county planner, who then answers questions from the board. And then the applicant has a chance to address the planning commission and answer questions from the planning commission. And then any members of the public who wish to comment would have a chance to comment on the case in question. All right, so let's begin with case number S-06-22-13. Anthony and Linda Clatterbuck have applied for a by right subdivision of an existing 12.1 acre parcel. The subject parcel is zoned A1 agriculture, and in this zoning district, the minimum parcel size is 3 acres. The subdivision would create 2 new parcels of 3 acres and 3.1 acres and a residue parcel of 6 acres. The subject parcel does not contain a postal address, but is located at or near the intersection of Repton Mill Road, Route 607, Good Hope Church Road, Route 616, and Orange Road, Route 230. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax maps as 57-12. All right, Ligon, would you tell us about this?
No, I think that pretty much describes it. He did present his entrances to VDOT and they were okay. You can see in the letter. We thought those were good locations, his proposed entrances. And he has everything in order, going ahead and done everything with the health department. And you got their letter too. So it's pretty straightforward.
Mhm. Does anyone from the planning commission have a question for Lee? Apparently not. Is the applicant here? Do you know?
No, I don't think he was planning on coming. He might
Okay.
be at the June 1st hearing, but not
Okay.
totally sure.
That's fine.
He's aware of it.
All right, in that case, is there any comment from a member of the public on this case? Okay, looks pretty straightforward. Nothing unusual about this. All right, case number SU 06-22-14. Dorothy and Ralph Martin have applied for a special use permit to operate an event venue on 3 A1 agriculture zone parcels, which they own, totaling roughly 154 acres. The applicants are seeking to host wedding receptions and similar events. Per Madison County zoning ordinance, event venues hosting 15 or fewer events annually are not required to obtain special use permits. The applicants anticipate exceeding 15 events annually. The subject property contains 2 dwellings addressed as 3033 and 3037 Hebron Valley Road, Madison, Virginia. The parcels are identified on Madison County's tax maps as 31-30B, 31-30E, and 31-30. Okay, Ligon?
Yeah, so you can see in the report I wrote, I have met with Dorothy, Ms. Martin at the site and took a look at it. You can see the pictures. The eventual goal is to, at some point, if this is SUP is approved, is to build a pavilion type structure. And you can see on the property where they would build it. They also want to construct standalone bathrooms. Probably would be separate. Well, definitely would be separate from the pavilion. There's actually a
Right.
kind of a accessory structure, barn, some sort of structure that they might convert into a bathroom. They realize the process for they're going to need to go to the health department. Right now, the parcel has a farmhouse that has a tenant, I think, that kind of manages the property, and then there's a single family dwelling on the property that now would be used as part of the venue. Whether guests stay there, and depending on the size, I think most are relatively smaller. I'd say probably 100 or less people. They could utilize the house for an event, but if it's really larger, they would bring in a tent. Of course, that needs to be permitted. The only I haven't got any comments back from VDOT. I don't think they're really going to have too many comments. We recommended that the entrance be improved to that low volume commercial entrance. It is a paved driveway. There's to one direction, as you can see in the pictures, there's really good sight distance. I think would be to the west or to the north. A really, really good sight distance to the south, or maybe to the east. The other direction, anyway, it's over 300 feet, which I believe with that speed, 35-mile-per-hour road, I think that's a inadequate amount of sight distance. It doesn't in any way strike me as being very dangerous. But they will flare out the entrance to be a commercial entrance. There's a lot of parking area. She told me that you can see in that diagram where I have overflow parking. The only thing that the health department really, and I talked to Ms. Borden from the health department, and if you can see number 4 on the conditions, and I have talked to the applicant on the conditions. They're not real complex, but as you can see on number 4, they just recommend it, and I think it's a fine recommendation. Should be easy to accommodate, that they just get a number of people that house could accommodate for an event. And if they go over it, they would provide porta johns. Of course, I think the owner has the interest in making sure that they don't overuse their septic field. So don't see that as an issue. That way they'll know it is a 4-bath house, upper and lower levels, about 7,000 square feet. So it's a big house. If you look at number 5, what I try to do there is that part of the special use permit would be they anticipate to build a 30 by 75. I just put 40 by 100 in case for some reason before they get their plans in, if that were to change. But what I'm trying to do here is just put a condition that sort of, this is what will be built extra. If for some reason they want to add another facility or another structure, then they would have to come back and amend the SUP, have another public hearing, go over again. They don't have any problem with that either, because they don't really know when they're going to build that pavilion. It might be a couple years down the road. On the amplified music, I just put 1030. That works for them. I think they're sensitive to the neighbors. That's just if someone's got a better idea or something, or someone from the public wants to come, but right now they don't have any issue with turning off all amplified music at 1030. And of course, large scale events. You can see number 1, they would, contact my office or Jonathan to make sure that if it was a large event that meets those criteria, that everyone was aware. So I think we've covered most things there. So any questions for me or on this one?
Okay, any questions from the Planning Commission? Yeah, this has been fleshed out quite a bit since we first saw this, so it's making good progress. Yeah. Any questions? No. Okay. Thank you. The applicant's not here.
They split time between here in Pennsylvania. She'll definitely be at the hearing, but she was
Okay.
not able to make it tonight.
Okay. In that case, is there any public comment on this case? Okay, thank you. All right, next case. case number SU 06-22-15. Maynor Ramos has applied for a special use permit to operate an automotive repair and welding shop on a 4.4 acre A1 agriculture zone parcel. In the A1 zoning district, an automotive repair / welding shop are allowable by a special use permit. The proposed shop would operate from an existing accessory structure located on the parcel. The parcel contains a dwelling addressed as 3090 Shelby Road, Madison, Virginia. The parcel is identified on Madison County tax maps as 55-16. Okay, Liegend?
We're becoming experts at garages around here. So we kind of know the routine. Mr. Ramos, he was invited tonight. He's not here, but he understands his biggest kind of issue is trying to find that engineer. He's looking to find an engineer architect that can certify the building.
Uh-huh.
Jamie and I went out there and looked at it, and Jamie agrees it's a pretty solid building. It shouldn't be hard to certify. One of the biggest issues is just trying to see how thick the concrete pad is, and it's thick. So a few minor things. Once they do get it certified, there will likely be a few things that will need to be done. As you can see in the conditions, I put September 1st to have it certified. Assume he does get the special use permit, that would give time. I mean, I think he'll have the certification in as soon as he can get someone out there. He's just having a little bit of trouble, and I'm helping him. I gave him a few names and just trying to help him find someone who can come out and certify that building. The bathroom is what we did with the other garages bathrooms, and they're in progress of installing at least one of them right now. From last September is in the process of installing their septic system. The number 3, and I told Mr. Ramos, I think the really most important thing is that the site have some organization to it instead of becoming a mini junkyard. I told him that was really very important. So no more than 6 cars out front at any given time, customer cars. Now, there is a tenant house, there might be a car or two associated with it, or an employee, but those 6 cars, and that he will build to the side of it, 50 by roughly, it might vary in size a little bit, but 50 by 40, that's to the east of it. He would build a fenced in area and put one of those fabric meshes around it. He had one printed up of that fabric mesh, that kind of a visual barrier you put on the fence. So he will do that. He's pricing it right now. I'm going to get the fence, if he's approved, he'll have that ready to go. So, site distance there is very good in both directions. VDOT hasn't made any comments on it yet. I don't think they're going to have much to say. The entrance is about as wide as you get, there's plenty of turning lane to get in there. So, and I think it's been a garage at some point on and off for many years. Now, he did amend the application to say automotive and welding. He's mostly going to do welding, but I mean, just to be upfront, if he works on someone's transmission, it might happen. So he said that, was not a problem, but really welding is going to be the primary focus of the shop.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
This parcel is 4.4 acres. I thought there was a rule, and there is a house on this parcel. So it's going to be residential and commercial at the same time. Is there an issue with the rule of 3 acres?
Yeah, we talked about that, and we look at area requirements in our code. I know that was something that was sort of in the past. I think it mostly applied, not always, but applied to if you were doing another house. And in our ordinance, we amended it where if you have
question I got, Jonathan, moving forward, that I would wonder, are we still, if you're building a house or whatever, it's still 3 acres per use? And it's like if you're doing a daycare or whatever, we had an issue a long time ago, I'm sure you remember over there, they was short a 1/10 of an acre or something other, and you didn't have 3 acres per use. So, or I'm just wondering where we're going. I understand this situation, but where are we going from that?
Now, for house, we went back and amended it a couple years ago. It specifically says in A1, M1, everyone, we added that you have to be able to assign 3 acres for each dwelling. So we actually put that in there. But to me, it doesn't read saying every use must be assigned. To me, it would have to say every use needs to be assigned a minimum acreage. And I don't have it in front of me, but it doesn't in any way suggest that to me. I
So
don't-
like in C1 conservation, it says 10 acres per use. What would be the situation there?
If you look at the code, Steve will get it. I mean,
I'm just asking because one,
Mr. Chairman, I was not expecting this issue to come up. I'm happy to take a look at it. I know that has been the long-standing policy. Whether that was the interpretation from Mr. Shackelford, in this Grayson, and that may well be the case. But I know it didn't come out tonight. So I
no,
will
it
take a
didn't.
look at it.
We've used it for a long time.
yeah, I mean, it says the minimum lot use for permitted uses shall be 3 acres. All dwellings located on a single parcel shall require a minimum of 3 acres per dwelling. I mean, that's,
So maybe it would be helpful if I'm here, members of the planning commission, that we put together just a quick, like, one-page summary that shows acreage for uses, whether it's A1.
That would be
B1.
wonderful.
Let's do that, please, take a note.
Yeah.
If it's not clear, we can simply amend the ordinance to clarify that.
Yeah, and Pete is correct. It specifically says minimum lot area for permitted uses shall be 10 acres, and that's in the C1. And that's pretty clear. So
Yeah,
that does say uses.
yeah, I still, just on other ordinances, and I still don't know if that was, I mean, if that was the way it was interpreted, and if we want to clear it up,
Well, I mean,
we
it's-
could clear it up, but I think that's fairly debatable, as they would say.
yeah, a single family dwelling is a use,
Right.
and something else is a use, farm sawmill, for example. So that would be 2 uses. The way it's written right now, we may want to consider, like you said, in the agriculture, we've apparently amended it somewhat.
Well, what we would do is simply amend it to clarify
Right.
what the existing law in Madison County currently is. We're not changing the law, we're just clarifying.
So how does it affect this case?
It would mean that he doesn't meet the requirement right now. Of course, he's in A1, it's not C1, so I guess that's something we could have.
Why wouldn't you get, I mean, Sean Gregg seems to know things. You got Sean Gregg, you got Ligon and Jonathan, let them come back with a report for the official meeting. They can give us a report on exactly what it is. If there's something that's pertinent, they certainly can email it out to everybody and make sure everybody's aware of it by the time we have the regular meeting.
Yeah, this is showing up in both of the committees that are working on projects right now too. This distinction between uses and dwelling units and so forth. It's not at all clear throughout the ordinances.
Well, I think the practice is getting clear.
Yeah.
That if we just need to articulate more carefully in our statutes what
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
What it
policy
means,
is.
yeah.
But I think we all sort of, I don't put my words in anybody's mouth, but I think we agree that having a garage on 4.5 acres with a house is something that is reasonable, as long as you get the special use permit.
I mean, it's reasonable for me to put Shea Stadium in my backyard.
Right. Reasonable doesn't mean legal.
But I don't think it would be
That's pretty
reasonable
clear,
to
isn't
say that in the backyard.
Well, has this place been closed long enough that it couldn't be grandfathered? Because it was,
It's been what,
It's-
2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, it's
How
been
many-
welded for ages.
It's been-
ever since I can remember.
Yeah, that building's been
I
there.
did my railing for my
Exactly.
winery in there, and it was 2018.
Yeah, but it's been there since probably
I
the
think this building is
1950s.
Probably grandfathered. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been there forever. Yeah.
Yeah, but
You may be right, though. I haven't done that.
that doesn't mean the use is necessarily, Okay, so
4 years ago.
4 years,
Y'all figure it out.
since they did my railings in 18.
That is correct. We'll get your report on it.
Mhm.
Very good.
It's something that needs to be clarified, I think, yeah. Okay. Okay, before we start on number 5, since we do now have a quorum, would it be appropriate, yeah, James came in. Would it be appropriate for us to go back and look at the minutes and approve those? Okay, let's take a quick second and do that then. No, that's okay. We're lucky to have you here tonight. All right. So just take a quick glance through, see if there's any questions or comments or concerns about the minutes. Other than correcting the spelling on my name again.
Did you want Stephen everywhere?
Yeah, just as long as you spell it right. Yeah. Okay.
Steve Carper on your nameplate.
All right, yeah.
No.
I didn't want to be pretentious.
Gotcha.
Okay, any comments or concerns? Okay, can I hear a motion to approve the minutes for the April 20th meeting?
So move.
Thank you. Any second? Second. Third. All up in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So the minutes have been approved. All right, moving on to the future possibilities here. All right, and again, we will follow the same procedure. We'll hear from Ligon, the applicant, if the applicant's here, public comments, and then go on. All right, public hearing preview anticipated for the July 6, 2022 Joint Planning Commission Board of Supervisors meeting. Madison Land Holdings LLC has applied to rezone a 2.08 acre parcel from R1 Limited Residential to B1 Business. An existing single-family dwelling is located on the parcel, and its address is 1173 Fishback Road, Madison, Virginia. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax maps as 40-19A. All right, Ligon, any comments?
Yeah, so we are familiar with the adjacent property, and I think that was rezoned, we had that split rezoning for, let me look at the map here. Yeah, they had the rezoning to use that parcel as, at least a portion of it, it's 39 acres, and there was a portion was rezoned for eventually looking for mini storage units, apartments. That's the light brown, and the red is a kind of just call it a commercial pad site. We did have, I know, one proffer on the commercial pad site for a monument style sign. This particular parcel right on the corner, 29 and Fishback Road was recently purchased by Madison Land Holdings. Mr. O'Bannon is here to talk a little bit about it. I know some of the questions we talked about were water and sewer. Water doesn't seem to be big of as a problem. Mr. O'Bannon does have 22 taps, I guess, sewer taps, EDUs, I believe they call it, for the adjacent property. But at this point, I think Mr. O'Bannon doesn't really have a specific use other than a business, some sort of business, commercial, something, probably take advantage of the fact you're on the highway. You know, I did talk to him about one of the small things, about maybe a monument style sign, which doesn't seem to be a problem. If anything, we talked for, 15, 20 minutes before this meeting. Mr. O'Bannon is here and be happy to kind of pick his brain or ask him any questions that he might have. I don't suspect, I think it makes sense that this could be a commercial, go to business. Eventually the house would be removed. But I also understand that at this point, he doesn't particularly have any particular use. Specifically, I would imagine probably some sort of a retail, something that could take advantage of the traffic there on 29. Mr. Bain, you have anything you want to add to this?
Not really. If you have any questions, I'll be glad
Yeah,
to have to address the water issue and the sewer issue at site plan.
yeah. Is the current house on municipal water and sewer, or is it on a well and drain field?
It's on the well and drain.
Okay. I suspected that, yeah. Okay, any other questions from the planning commission?
So we'll work on kind of some potential agreement we can come to. I think we're in agreement that, that it will bring water to the site. I mean, that's something.
Yes,
right.
that's gonna have to be, water's gonna have to be brought to the site.
And the sewer is a great mystery right now. I know we
Well,
were,
the sewer plant is adjacent to the
Mhm.
piece there. I think it's 42. My eyes are not the best anymore. 4023, I believe, is probably where that sewer plant is. Maybe not.
yeah, I think that's it.
It's close there, you know.
It's close, it's right there, because they, in fact, they bought some land for us for around that sewer plant. So the sewer plant is, that wouldn't be the problem, and the water would have to be brought from actually from up at Maple Drive.
And you think you're going to get you were saying that the storage units, that's something you're probably going to start.
The plan I have now is, in fact, I'm doing a topo on it now, flyover. And my plan is doing the storage units first. And then, up from there. Of course, we've been moving up through that since 1974, so.
What part of the lot was the storage units going on?
Just
Pardon?
There,
What part of the lot?
the dark.
The real dark area there, I assume.
At the
is
back. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
And then the apartments would be going next. And then, of course, the commercial is the piece that hits Fishback Road. And we just had the opportunity to buy the piece down the corner from Mr. and Ms. Paul.
and that triangle there.
Any questions of it? I can try to answer.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I think this little piece of land right here adds a lot to that piece of land that Madison Holdings already had as far as being able to have good entrances in and out of that project. And I think that's a big asset to what he's got there.
I agree.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if not, let's move on to the next preview here. Okay. Mikolaj Vivaldi, I can pronounce Vivaldi, has applied for a special use permit to operate an automotive repair shop on a 355.5 acre A1 agriculture zone parcel in the A1 zoning district. An automotive repair shop is allowable by special use permit. The proposed shop would operate from an existing accessory structure located on the parcel. The parcel contains two address points, 6726 and 6730 South Seminole Trail, Rochelle, Virginia. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax maps as 55-22. And there should definitely be no problem with the 3 acre minimum here.
Now, we won't have that problem this one. Alan, do you mind going to that tax map for us, just so you can see, just so you know exactly where it is? Yes, sir. That'd be super. Same situation, building certified. There is a pump and haul at that site that was, I guess, illegally installed. That's why you would say it. So they understand that need to get that corrected. Mr. Vivaldi is a tenant. He's actually a firefighter in Charlottesville. Now, I believe this is sort of it's kind of a hobby garage. He does hot rod work and sort of custom work, but it's significant enough where he's advertising and it's, it's, I guess you call it open to the public. So that's why it's going through this process. So at this point, I think we kind of understand the procedure. It is concealed off the road. You can see there where it is. It's a building that I have not been to the building, so I'm going to go to that probably next week, but get some pictures of it. But again, it will need to be certified. We'll need to rectify the bathroom situation. Those two things are definitely, need to happen. So other than that, until I go to the building, but Jamie, our building official, has been to it, familiar with it, who understands a pretty substantial, solid building, but it still will need to be certified.
What is the duration of the lease?
I'm not really sure. He just started leasing it. If I had to guess, it's probably just a month-to-month type situation.
John, this is, if I may, for clarity for the planning commission. Are y'all familiar with Lightburn Farms? That's where this building is located. So we don't have an answer for the lease because it's something that's popped up. Now they're wanting to make it right per se. So that's why Ligon and the building official are trying to track down specifics, whether the existing building, has to go through engineering stamp, does it have the proper sanitary facilities? So there's still some things for them to iron out, but that is where this location is.
This building sits back across from where the land farm is, back in those cedar trees or pine trees there. And the last time that I know that this building was used, Larry Clore, a long time ago, had an auto shop there.
It's way down in the hole. You can barely see it.
Yeah.
Bottom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's down, you
It's got a
can't
bunch
see
of
it
other
from the
barns.
road.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of other barns around.
Exactly.
The house is back there too.
But the applicant is a month-to-month tenant
Right.
for a
And that,
permanent running with the land special use permit.
he is the applicant, it's not the landowner.
Where's Lightburn?
Well, Lightburn has obviously consented to the application. I mean, he came in.
Where's Lightburn?
Yeah.
It's Bruce.
Yeah, is he here? He's in Madison?
Yeah, because it backs up to us.
Yeah, I mean,
Like One Farm does, but the owner's not here.
Yeah, he's
Right.
not here very often.
The son's here.
Oh, all right, there you
Yeah,
go.
his son is here.
All right.
yeah, I mean, he came in with the tenant and sat down. We talked to him, both the
So does the
Mr.
son
Lightburn.
go to library or shall it go to this gentleman?
Yeah, so he's the owner.
Library's the owner.
Right.
Does it go to the business or the property?
I would say it would go to the individual, but it would run with the land. I mean, unless we want to put some sort of
Yeah.
stipulation on it that it. Yeah, I mean, you could do that with any special use permit, but as long as
You can make them run with the applicant.
Right.
But
I didn't think we could get a special use.
practice is to let them run. But Madison in the past has done special use permits that went with the individual. I know where about a half dozen of those.
Then is the applicant, should the applicant be the landowner?
Typically, the applicant is the landowner. This is unusual in that it's a lease interest. I've never seen this. But I've only been here 4 years.
well, I mean, the last one, Mr. Ramos is leasing it from his sister is the administrator of the estate. And I had to get all those papers and have them in the file, but leasing it from the estate, I mean,
But it's his family's property, correct?
his sister, yes.
It is. It's still under, Weed's name, isn't it?
Yeah, it's some kind of an
I mean,
estate. Yeah.
you can look on the application for that one,
Yeah.
and
But I
it's
think it's under his trust. name.
it's a trust, and she provided all the documents. I have it in the file. I mean, from my perspective, if it follows the conditions, you're comfortable with the conditions, and they get right with the building and health department, unless there's some compelling reason to have it only run with the applicant or the person that's going
If
to.
it was gonna run with the land, it should be applied, by the landowner. If it's just solely for a business on this one, then it needs, this is the one case that I kind of think actually should go with the actual applicant. It'd be super smart to get Lightburn, either one of his sons, I guess, Matt or Tito, I guess, get them to apply for it and go like that.
I mean, and the risk you run is the landlord, particularly absentee landowners, finding out somebody who got a special use permit on their property, that they may not have wanted. And then cleaning that up later can be somewhat problematic.
No, I'm not going to take the application unless the landowner consents, whether it's an email or in this case, I always have something in writing from the landowner. I mean, it's common practice other places, but I mean, if y'all want to do it differently or go with the landowner, I mean, that's fine. But to have, it's sort of like with the proposal with the gentleman with the glamping. I mean, simply have consent from the landowner and it would run with the land, but.
Yeah, I think this question did come up with the Ramos SUP also, that he's not the owner. And, that bothers us a little bit, I think.
So the Owen Taylor estate,
Yeah.
AKA Anna Reynolds, would that still appropriately, your suit's gonna go to?
No, the applicant in this case is the tenant, but I don't see, again, this is how I've done this for 20 years. So this is all new to me. I don't know. Sean, yeah. It's commonplace for, sometimes the landowner and the tenant, people rent. I mean, there's shops out there that they have you have a garage, somebody rents it from them, but runs a garage from it. I mean, it's the same concept, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Mr. O'Bannon owns a garage space on 29, and he just, it's by right use in this case. It wasn't, but he just rents it to someone else. It's allowable in that zone district. To me, the SUP is the same thing. It runs with the land. The owner of the land in this case is Lightburn Farms. If Mr. Valverde makes a go at it and does well for a few years and decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, unless you want to put some sort of condition on the special use permit that's not transferable to anyone else other than the tenant, that's fine. But again, it's very common that the situation,
Yeah, the complication here is that a shop or a garage or whatever is by right, but if you make it a commercial shop, then it has to be a special use application, and that's changing the use. It's and leaving the landowner totally out of the picture here, especially it's an absentee landowner. I mean, even if his son lives there, I mean, that's no guarantee that the owner knows what's going on.
Yeah, I would argue that the owner has to consent.
Yeah, that would simplify it.
The owners have consented to the application.
Where? On the application, or?
I mean, I need to get a statement from Mr. Lightburn. Mr.
Okay.
Lightburn came in, sat down with the applicant. What does he have to do to get a special use permit to operate a garage?
Okay.
But was that the son or the father?
I'm not really sure. It's the one that's the legal owner of the land. He's a little bit older. I mean, I think he's, whoever.
That would help a lot, I think.
I would just.
There's something on the record there.
I always get something before the hearing.
Yeah.
That says I consent to, so to a certain degree, yes, we're issuing to that property. This is going to be the tenant. I mean, I wouldn't get, we got permission from the landowner to go forward.
Mhm.
They're not going to be surprised by this. He's already charged them $1,200 to be there a month. So they're in an agreement. I wouldn't change anything based on, I mean, in my personal opinion, it's just how I've seen it work in other places. And as long as we get some sort of consent from the legal owner, they're aware.
You're just more trusting than we are, that's all.
I know you.
Okay,
I mean-
any other question? Okay, we'll see how that turns out when it comes up then. Okay, under 5C, we have Woodbury Forest School, an initial site plan submittal for a new recreational building, which looks like a pretty good sized building.
23,000 gross square feet. I did give a little, since this is over 40,000 square feet,
Mhm.
if it was under, we'd do it administratively, but since it's over, color toner ran out today, but this is a little bit of a sketch showing what it would be. It's actually I think Jamie said it's, they've turned in all their plans and engineering plans and all that. It's some kind of a fabric. I don't know if the exterior, I know the roof is some sort of a fabric roof. Not sure if
Okay.
the exterior is too, but it's a pretty state-of-the-art facility. It would have pickleball, basketball, multi-use type recreation building.
I'm trying to see where this is located on the campus there.
Yeah, I'll get a better
Oh, okay.
picture.
Yeah, that's one of those fabric structures, sort of like that. Well, it doesn't look the same, but it's the same idea as that National Insurance Institute thing up on 29 toward Ruckersville, I guess. Well, those great big fabric
Yeah,
structures.
right, that's right.
you know. Well, I mean, other than the fact that it's of that size, I don't know. Does anybody have a question for Legan about this? I mean, let's face it, Woodbury Forest is sort of like Disney World. It's its own land.
No, this submittal they gave me had about 10 other pages that were
Mhm.
all engineering. It's, Jamie we were talking about today. This is a very modern, high-tech sort of new construction facility with this roof they're using. So I think they want to get started this summer, probably about a 6-month. I know 6 months or so build. I could be wrong on that, but
They do fantastic work every time they do one of these, and they bring in every drawing under the sun.
Yeah.
That Pete probably understands. The rest of us are all. I mean, they do an exceptional job. Great neighbors.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Okay, is there any of the applicants?
no, they'll be at the
Okay,
next
yeah.
month's workshop, and of course the hearing in July.
Right, yeah, that we're, in accordance with our new policy, we're looking out pretty far in the future now, yeah. All right, under the old business in section 6, neither Peter nor Fay are here. We have the product of their committees in the packet. I have some comments that Fay has emailed me, and I'll read those. I think in Peter's committee, they're pretty close to something that we can go ahead and start presenting. I think based on the number of things we've been doing tonight, we may want to just as a commission look over this, since the committees are about ready to hand this to us, and see if we have any comments or questions or changes that we might want to look at. I know in Peter's case, there's been some questions about the differentiation between the ADU and the short-term rental. But I think that's been addressed already in some of the revisions he's made. So does anyone have a comment or concern right now about either of those, the short-term rental or the ADU? Yes.
I've got one thing that actually ties into the work we've been doing on the subdivision, and so that may come up then. But essentially, one thing we're running into with that is it's one thing to permit a certain number of dwellings on a private road, whether it be 4, 6, 8. But if, let's just say if it was all 10-acre parcels, and you had started out with 6 houses and ended up with 6 houses plus 6 accessory dwelling units, you're basically, permitting that road to be kind of overloaded from what it was designed for. So I thought maybe it was appropriate to, since the ADU portion is getting redone right now anyway, possibly address the private road issue.
Yeah, since we're working on it now, yeah.
ADU part, and maybe make just some different restrictions if it's on a private road.
Yeah. Nathan, I think if you look at what sent to the committee on the private road subdivision, I try to make it where, what we talked about, if you got 4, and let's say a 5th lot comes on, they do, come in, do an administrative subdivision, you're going to just make one subdivision, you're going to make a 5th lot. The concern was, what's the new extension of the road? How is that going to be constructed? And is there going to be a maintenance agreement on the road? So if you look at the red, if you look at 481A, 481B, C, and then 621, 622. Some of it was ideas that I came up with. A lot of it's what the committee came up with. I just really sat down one day for a whole day and just said, okay, let me see how this can all function together. So I think right now what we have, if we were going to let 8 be on a private road, we have the dirt gravel standard here, that the soil conservation district as a guide that we already use. I think we could just simply add a provision that I could find somewhere in here to answer that concern. If you've got 4 parcels on a private drive, you could also probably add a provision if another home is, whether it be an ADU or another home is built on that drive, it makes it the 5th address, or just 5th dwelling. Doesn't necessarily have to have an address. I don't know if ADUs all have an address. They probably would, but a 5th address that we simply say you have to then get a maintenance agreement and do the same things you have to do for a subdivision. Does that make sense?
It does, and we kind of talked through some of that. The problem, and initially we had talked about using the word parcel or lot instead of, or parcel, or we talked about using dwelling unit instead of parcel or lot, so that it would actually kind of tie into houses and not necessarily parcels, right? So you didn't have a 50-acre parcel with, just a whole bunch of houses on there. So let's say it's a family compound type deal, right? But if you kind of counted that house, that ADU, as an additional house on that driveway or that private road into the total number of what was allowed, if somebody had a private road, and we'll just use the number 4 for now because that's what's currently in there, and had 4 houses on it or 4 lots, and 3 people built and 1 person built an ADU, and then somebody came down years later to build on their lot and then found out they couldn't because somebody built an ADU, we can't really tie it up based on that.
Well, the ADU would be just for if you were in that 3 to 5.9, 5.9, that would be, you could put another accessory, what we're talking about.
You could, but you couldn't count it as in total number of allowed dwellings on that private drive.
Right.
But if you were the fifth address on a private drive and it was an ADU, I mean, we could then say, hey, look, you need to you're not subdividing, but you could say, look, you need to get a maintenance agreement now. I mean,
Yeah, that's the point of the ADU is not to subdivide.
Right.
But that's a point that I don't think had been considered about whether it's a separate E911 address.
And we're in general looking at this more on the new development side.
Right.
Yeah.
Because getting into the existing we had for thing gets a lot trickier.
Yeah. Briefly back to the short-term lodging and ADU. Does anybody currently have any comments or questions on that? And I'm not sure this is the most recent version here either, because I know Peter was talking about one of the changes that you had suggested that made a whole lot of sense was just saying, instead of 5.9 acres, just saying less than 6, because as you pointed out, first thing you're going to have happen is somebody with 5.95 acres coming in and wanting to do it. So, and I thought he was already going to be making that change, and I see that it's not on this one. So,
yeah, that's what he sent me recently, and I thought he was too. But
yeah, I mean, this one's dated the 18th of March.
yeah, that's
so.
what he sent me. He said, put this.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no comments on that one right now, hopefully certainly by our next workshop meeting, we should be able to bring in some comments on the ADU and the short-term rental. And Peter should be here to give us some information. Yeah, Pete?
I got a question I want to ask Ligon, and I got one I want to ask John.
Mhm.
Ligon, let's say that we change it to 8, okay? And there's 9 tax maps on that road. So that we're saying it could be 8 houses built there. This guy's got a tax map that already existing on that road. How could he not be number 9?
Yeah, I mean, if it's
He owns a tax map, he should be able to build there, right?
right, if it's a situation where, I mean, if it's an existing lot on an existing drive, then as long as it was created, if it sounds like maybe that could be a grandfather lot, maybe something that was created before a subdivision ordinance, which, of course, the subdivision ordinance was in 67, but just as a sidebar, the minimum lot size in 67, which was a little confusing to me. Thanks, Sean and Jonathan, we kind of figured this out. I think Sean knew before me, but the minimum lot size in 67 was 20,000 square feet. So I think that might have, it wasn't, that was just countywide. But yeah.
Like the particular place I'm thinking of, there's a lot of acreage there. And if you change it to 8, there's already like 8 people on the road, but there's another tax map there. That guy has a right to build his house on that tax map that's been forever, right?
Not necessarily. Just because you have a tax map, I think sometimes we confuse what a tax map is and the right to build a house. There are lots of lots that would be non-conforming lots.
So how do you,
What he would typically do in order to be able to build there, and the way it's done in other counties, certainly it's done in Orange County, is you can build there. You have the right to build there, but that doesn't change the fact that you have to make sure that the road is up to the standard that is set forth in the code. Typically, the way Orange County has done it, you've got to build the road up to state standards in order to be in an orange. I think the 5th lot apparently was always 5th, but it would be the same circumstance. It would be rather than, if what winds up getting passed is 8 lots, the 9th lot owner would have the same hardship that the 5th lot owner has now. And you're absolutely right, there are lots of subdivisions where that person kind of gets the short end of the stick, but that has been the law. And the reason for the law, remember, is to make sure that you're not overburdening substandard roads. That's why it's passed in the first place. And sometimes people, own these lots and they gamble on the future, hoping that either the roads will be improved or the law will change. And that may be what these people have done.
The other
That
question,
probably doesn't answer your question.
well, kind of does.
Okay.
But the other question I got, because I have a good friend and we've got a piece of property in Orange. And right now Orange County is shut down where they're not even taking any applications till they get some of their
Just
property.
yours.
Well, they got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I went to a meeting and listened, but anyway. If I own a piece of land here and John Doe owns a piece of land here, and I build a road right down beside John Doe's piece of property for me to get in to serve my pieces of property here, does John Doe have a right to use that road?
If it touches his property, I'm guessing the answer to that question is yes. That's off the top of my head, and I haven't read the ordinance. And the reason for that is, if it's touching his property, it's hard to say that he couldn't. On the other hand, if you were to build that road entirely on your property,
1 foot from him.
1 foot from him, then no, he does not have the right to do that. So is that what you're gonna do?
I didn't say that.
You could be a nice guy and do a foot and a half.
Well, and just so you know, spike strips officially are discouraged in the state.
But I will say, I think one of the conversations we had was the standard of the road, and but
Mhm.
I'm happy with the committee work put forth, and I think hopefully what I added clarifies some things as far as that was one of the big concern is we
Right.
really do have a guide here. We've even codified it as this needs to be followed in the subdivision ordinance, and you really have to, in my opinion, if I was going to administer it, what's been written here, in the red text and the things that the committee has worked on, I think it's something that I could explain to people and say, look, you're getting that 5th and 6th lot. Okay, you're expanding this road. You've got to follow this right here. And we also need, when you record this subdivision, we're also going to need a road maintenance agreement recorded with it for that whole road. Now, if you and your neighbor are the only ones that want to do it, these 2 new lots, and so be it. So I think we've got there's no rush on this, but I think we're headed where work out maybe this, more houses on the road, things like that maybe aren't subdivided. We work out that. I think we have something that we can administer and be consistent with, understanding that sometimes on these back roads, it can get a little confusing who uses it, who has a right to it, who has a right of way. I think we create something that will, I think something that can be administered fairly easily. We just treat everybody the same and get those maintenance agreements and hopefully, because I think the far majority of these private drives really, I think most of them are fairly well maintained, and the neighbors, I'll even ask people when they come in for a single, you guys have a maintenance agreement? They're like, oh yeah, we all chip in every year. And so I think the far majority of the kind of the rural subdivisions or roads are fairly well maintained.
I can tell you that some of those instances have, or at least one, where the farmer has the property, and they're letting hunters go out on those private roads, and the hunters are the ones that are
That's right.
using the
Yeah.
road.
And they may throw in money or something.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, and Steve Fay and I too did talk about this at the last committee meeting.
Mhm.
And on 4-8-3, I was pretty sure we had kind of agreed that it should be changed to 8 parcels or lots. There was one more time, as opposed to dwelling units. I mean, essentially with the way it's set up, you could have a developer build a nice road, have all the maintenance agreements, sell 10 lots to people, and the first 8 people that build get to do it. Last 2 are cut out. So I think that needs to be changed. And like I said, the whole idea of putting dwelling units was to keep from overloading the road with a lot of ADUs or something like that. But I think we were looking at switching that to parcel or lots, as far as I was aware.
Yeah, that's an area of, still an area of concern, the actual wording to make it mean what we want it to mean. And there's some concern with talking about driveways or accesses to the private drive or whatever we're going to call them. With regard to the 8, that's kind of a placeholder right now. That's not saying that we think that that's necessarily the ideal number. It's just the suggestion was that it needed to be larger. And if you go, I mean, we've got a high end on 15, because at 15, we go automatically to the planned unit development requirements. So in between there's, 6, 7, 8. Nathan liked an even number, so we said 8. So yeah, I'll blame it on Nathan.
And I talked to Faye about this too. I'm on 6.
Yeah. Oh, back to 6. Okay.
So you guys know.
Something to consider, and I'm not trying to unduly complicate things. You could simply make the minimum for planned unit developments 5. And it can take care of a lot of these issues.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not advocating anything, but to the extent you're worried about the gap between 4 and 15,
Yeah.
that would be one solution to it.
That's the simplest solution.
Could be.
Yeah.
Just,
That's
Yeah,
a,
You're earning your money now.
that's a,
if the concern is roads, and quality of roads, that gives you a higher standard of road. But, that's what the political world is.
yeah.
I'm not advocating anything.
I do think there needs to be a mention of ADUs, because it's essentially another dwelling unit.
Yeah, that's
And
going to have to be
therefore,
clarified.
another set of
Well,
users of the road. And if
course.
the concern is the maintenance of the road,
Mhm.
then we need to.
The ADU by definition, though, it can't be sold separately, or if we pass this, it would not be able to be sold separately. It's considered a part of the main residence, basically. It's just a separate building that's part of that dwelling unit.
But it's another set of
Yeah, and then it would be
cars and-
but as long as it didn't put another driveway, whatever we're going to call it, onto the private road, it would still be, I mean, that's the whole, it's a exigent circumstance case for the ADU. I don't think it's ever meant to be a convenient thing that everybody does. That's supposed to be a very special case. But
Mr. Chairman, extrapolating,
yeah,
if you've got 8, and then you've got 8 hardship cases,
right.
all living in their motorhomes on the property, you have just quadrupled the amount of traffic.
Mhm.
And again, with the road standards, and again, I'm not trying to complicate this unduly, but, one of my responsibilities is to bring the clouds to the picnic. So
Yeah, and we've already identified the problem of the family divisions on a single tax map. So this is like an extension of that,
That's kind of where I was, and that's what we were running into. And
Mhm.
I was thinking, hey, you guys are redoing the ADU thing. Let's take that by right ADU out of that private road, onto a private road, like take that out of from
Yeah.
being by right.
That's
or you could just have the road standards, superseded, because you have an ADU, doesn't mean people are allowed to live there, but you can actually improve the road.
Yeah, that's what this committee basically, and the ones that I was sitting in on, it turned out that just changing it from 4 to 8, that it's just like this. Everything is intertwined in that particular ordinance, and if you're going to get the road maintenance agreements in there, and we were very fortunate that we discovered you didn't have to reinvent the wheel. That Madison not only had road standards, they were already inspecting roads. So, which made that part a lot easier once we found that out, thanks to Legan finally. But okay, so just let me mention a few points that Faye had asked me to bring up, and then we'll kind of leave this for cogitating on a little bit too. the increased number of dwelling units up to eight is temporary placeholder. We are fully aware that there's probably going to be discussion about that, how many and so forth. The one thing that I think the committee is pretty definite about is to require the road maintenance agreement for any extension or addition of another dwelling unit. And that's where the ADU comes in. How do we want to deal with that? And it's also where if you've got a family division, how we're going to deal with that. Right now, the committee is basically saying family divisions automatically qualify as a new dwelling unit on the private road. Another question that she raised that she wanted us to think about. Want to make sure that, and I think you've discussed this with us before, but the sale of a property on a private road or change of ownership of the dwelling, once you have the road maintenance agreement, Faye says the committee wants to be sure, do we have to specifically say in the ordinance that the road maintenance agreement has to go with the property, or is that implied?
You really can't do that.
Can't do it.
You just can't. I mean, and the reason for it is because you're imposing a duty on people, and that duty does not currently exist on those existing property owners. So, for example, if I own a piece of property, and I'm not subject to a road maintenance agreement, then I don't have to participate.
That's,
And that makes it better for me because I got this really nice road and I can let my kids ride their ATVs up and down the road and tear it up.
yeah, I think,
don't have to pay for it.
yeah, the question she's raising,
Right.
yeah, the question she's raising is property that has signed a road maintenance agreement. Does that,
If a
is that
property
part of
is
the,
subject to a road maintenance agreement, the covenants of the road maintenance agreement would run the way.
okay, that's the question she was asking, yeah.
But if there are lots that are served by that road that have not signed the road maintenance agreement,
Right.
they don't have to sign.
Yeah, I think they got around that by saying some percentage, the subdivided, the new lots the road maintenance agreements can be signed by some percentage of the property owners, anything from 100 to 0. So,
Well, that's
yeah,
and sometimes
one person ends up doing it, yeah.
Because he's the one who
Right.
built the last house in the area.
Sean, but rather than putting that in the ordinance, wouldn't that be something that would be recorded with the deed? Rather than having it in the ordinance, it would go with the deed.
It would go with the deed, you're exactly right about that. The advantage of having it in the ordinance is it prevents people from building problems for the county. That's really the issue, because if somebody can get away with not reporting their road maintenance agreement, and mistakes happen, I mean, sometimes things don't get reported, we want to make sure we have something in place, kind of setting forth what the county policy is.
And we would record it with the subdivision as well. So they come in here, that's like
Well,
Mr. Coates,
that's
Mr. Coates said.
the way it's supposed to happen.
Right.
It don't.
It's a belt and suspenders.
Right.
Okay. I think Ligon may have already mentioned this, but there's apparently was some questions about the common plan of development. There were several things that at least one of the committee members had a question about. Let's see, where was that? That's all part of that's existing ordinances basically, isn't it? See if I can find it here right quick. Let's see it. Some of that comes from the fact that the road standards that we're using are the soil and water conservation type things, aren't they? They're
Right.
erosion and isn't that where that came from?
481A, 481B, 481C and D.
There it is. Yeah. 481C. Yeah.
So if you disturb more than an acre, then you have to do it's a stormwater plan.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dividing, even if it's less, but it's multiple lots, we don't have to really worry about that as much because most of our subdivisions are not going to be less than an acre. But
Right.
you're either going to have to submit a plan that shows the road, the construction of the road, standards it's being built to DEQ, or if it's less than an acre, then you would get what they call an agreement in lieu of a plan. You would still follow those measures, but you wouldn't have to engineer it and show where all the water is going if it's less than an acre. You still have to put ditches in and do those things and stabilize it. And so 48-1A, B, C, and D, to me, it's sort of like those are the standards the roads will be required to be built to. And of course, we're, pulling out this handy manual here that shows how the road should be built and constructed. If you're extending a road, if you're going to go over that acre, then you're going to have to you can submit a stormwater plan, common plan development to DEQ. Once they approve it, the ENS plans will be responsible for making sure that site's stabilized and silt fences up and ditches are draining properly and things like that.
Okay. In reading this, I think maybe, I'm not sure this was the intent behind the question originally, but it looks like that's talking about what we would commonly call a driveway from the house to the private drive, because it's talking about a single family dwelling. That particular thing, the common agreement in lieu of a plan. I think that was what the question was about.
Right.
So the question may simply be, is that particular statement necessary since we're specifically only talking about the private drives right now? We're assuming that there's access to the private drive from each of the parcels or lots or whatever we end up calling them.
Are you talking about 481-4
C.
with C? Yeah,
Yeah.
a new subdivision of an existing parcel. So you're adding to an existing, or the extension of an existing private road to accommodating an additional subdivided parcels. And I'm looking at back to 483. Of course, you talk about dwellings in
Right,
483.
right.
So
Yeah.
Which are not subject to 48-1. So you're not
Right.
disturbing over an acre.
Right.
Shall require the submittal of an agreement in lieu of plan to construct a single family dwelling, including family subdivisions.
Mhm.
So that's already being adhered to.
Yeah. My question is, it sounds like that is applying to the access on the lot from the dwelling unit, for want of a better term,
Well, I'm just
to
sort of-
the private
right.
drive.
Yeah, that's good. I thought of it that way. But if you had to extend the road and connect to it, all of that's gonna, if it's less than an acre, then you're gonna
Okay.
have to build that.
Okay. Yeah.
Whether you're extending the road and making a driveway, a couple hundred,
So
30
if-
feet back to your house, that's all
Yeah.
going to have to be in accordance with agreement in lieu of a plan, and you're going to have to construct it to the standards here.
Mhm. Okay. I can, that clarified it some. We could have, for example, a subdivision of a 15-acre parcel at the end of one of these private drives, which then makes it an extension, and this
Right.
would apply. Okay.
So,
It could only be subdivided into maybe 2 parcels, but they would still do that.
well, maybe the committee meets again, as I see it. I don't want to repeat what Nathan said, or is that we might have a thing with parcels, lots, new lots, and then also have a standard where we want maintenance agreements. If you've got 4 lots, but you want to add another house, someone puts an ADU or puts another house on a parcel, that they too have maintenance agreements. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing. I'll give an option if we broke that out as well. If we broke out houses, we could put a provision in here that also makes, regardless if you're subdividing, if you're putting more houses on a road, you still have to follow, make sure the road is maintained.
Yeah, I think that there's 2 basic premises that the committee's working on right now. One, for any addition of any kind or extension of any existing private road, or all new subdivisions which don't already have a private road on them. That's when, as part of the subdivision, they have to do the road maintenance agreement. And then the kind of incidental to that, since we already have the necessary ordinances in place, that the road standards are already taken care of. But that's part of the kind of the deal was, if we increase the number of lots that can access a private drive, as a trade-off on that, we get the road maintenance agreement and the road standards. Yeah. But I think the main thing that I see right now is that, we just have to clarify, what we've been talking about. Do we call it a lot? Do we call it a dwelling unit? What do we call it? We need to be consistent all the way through. So that's going to require some comments the next time we look at this. I think the outline's in good shape right now, but we need to clarify some things and just kind of get some of the wording correct. Any comment on that other than that? Yeah, and one of the other things that Faye wanted me to mention was that, just to make sure everybody knows that all any addition, any extension, all of this stuff includes family divisions. And I think it's even in here somewhere, if there's a sale of an existing second dwelling unit that was a result of a family division, that's considered an addition as well. Okay, well, if that's lots to think about. Okay, we do have a old business number C here. Ligon, if you want to bring us up to date on that.
Right. So I talked to the applicant, who of course has an agreement with the landowner. They have not, they've really just sort of been getting feedback from us, and we've talked about it at least 3 months now. Told Mr. Hamney that, really thought there was a concern, and I talked to a lot of folks up here individually, people on the board. I think there was some current concerns with the density on the 40, a little less than 40 acres and the 70 units. That turned into concerns about, naturally about water and sewer and all those things. Just really felt the density was, too high for a parcel that small. So he's now in talking with an adjacent landowner, see if he could acquire more land. He's still at that 70 units for glamping. And, so right now he's going back to see if he could potentially acquire 30 more acres to make it roughly 70 acres. And the proposal would be 70 glamping units. So right now the ball it's in his court to see what he comes back with, if he can reach an agreement with a adjacent landowner, which I guess is the same family. to acquire 30 acres. So I think he's doing that now. And I've talked to the adjacent landowners. I've talked to the owner of the subject parcel as well, and to explain to them, my thoughts and Plan Commission and people I've talked to's thoughts. So right now, it's just sort of wait and see what might come back.
Okay. All right. New business. All right, we have, let's see. We haven't seen these before, but these are, I think, basically administrative. Is that right, Regan?
Yes, sir. So this is just something that was requested on, I guess, bonding. The most things that we bond the most here in the county are ENS measures for a house. If you're building a house, I think it's fairly a new thing for a single family home. I think the state adopted this a few years ago. You pay $1,000 bond for your disturbance. If you're over 10,000 square feet, pay $1,000 bond. Once you got grass growing, you get the $1,000 bond back. Pretty straightforward. Now, some of the commercial projects, it's a little bit different. Usually the bonds are much greater, and the disturbance and the stabilization, what you have to do, are much more intensive and much more expensive. So this kind of originated, I believe, with the South Park, right there at the Food Lion, is could we do a partial release of bond? And this is in the zoning ordinance, this section that I have shown you, the 4-2, 421, 422 bonding requirements. And this is general for all bonding. We don't get into a lot of road bonding and things like that here. We haven't done that since I've been here. I've done it in other places, but I'm just adding 4-23 that this comes directly from the state code. If it's a storm, if it's a ENS measure and the grass is grown and things are stabilized, but you still have to do, you've done A, but you got B to done. As long as A is done to satisfaction, we can release a portion of that bond. So that's, and I've talked to Matt about this, and that there's no problem. It's done. It's obviously allowable, and so that's where that's coming from. And there's no rush on it necessarily, but I just want to get on everyone's radar to.
Is this what kind of procedure are we looking at? Does this have to be proposed by the Planning Commission, go through the public hearings?
Yeah, since it's in the zoning ordinance, I think it's,
Okay, so
just a hearing. We did a joint hearing. It could be a joint hearing,
Right.
Planning Commission, like we do other.
so we have to go through standard amendment procedures. Okay. So at some point, we'll be tasked with providing the amendment, and then we'll go through the procedures and the
Yeah, I
public
mean,
hearings. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in that regard,
Mhm.
I think this ordinance, 423 dedication, is appropriate. It's probably ready for advertisement and passage or voting on it,
Mhm.
in due course. In other words, there's no need to, while there may not be any real urgency, but there's also no reason to delay this.
Steve,
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, I got a question there before we do this, and a concern, I guess. Let's say, for instance, that like the shopping center they built out there, and they build it, and it's in the springtime, and they plant grass, and the grass is all up there, and we release the biggest part of the bond on that road. And I think it used to be a year before we let that stuff go, Ligon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
And
this,
if we let that go and we go through the winter and the road freezes and thaws and pops and buckles and cracks, now, do we have enough bond left? If the developer don't want to fix it, we can fix it. That would be my concern.
well, on South Park, we did not take a bond on the road. They just,
But we take bonds on roads because I know some that we've had. that
Right,
we've
sure.
had to go back and fix. Over here at Brightwood, when Mr. Shackford was here, They had some pipes and some riprap and a bunch of stuff that the county had to go fix. And Clay might remember that.
Mhm.
Where that one
That was
is.
Fox Hunter.
There you go, Jonathan. Jonathan remembers it.
The issue here is simply making sure that our ordinance is in compliance with the Virginia code. And, you know, and this is an area where we are not allowed not to be in compliance.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, you know, if it is inspected and approved, you know, it's inspected and approved. You know, so it really, the responsibility is on the inspectors to make sure that what they're approving is, you know, appropriate, you know, for that level of approval.
I understand it, but it'd have to be in, if it's in the state code, we gotta follow it.
Right.
But my concern is, if you release the bond money and you have a bad winter, summertime, any road will pass. Wintertime, it may not.
Sure. Oh, I agree. And you know, I'm not crazy about the periodic, you know, the requirement that bond be partially released. And it's not really clear exactly how much of it has to be released. But the state code does say that. Okay.
I guess the bond would have to be set up front
Yeah,
to
it's-
designate how much and what.
You normally get a schedule. It's usually an engineering
Yeah.
firm that's involved. They give you a schedule of what each thing's worth. And then that's what you have to go off of. And an engineer will give you a letter of completion or a submittal to release partial bond or partial bond request, or how these things are done. And that doesn't mean that request has to say, okay, the engineer said it, then we're gonna go ahead, and you gotta go out and inspect it and make sure. It does allow us to actually have in writing to follow state code, in this certain matter, Ligon's referred to. I heard the situation, it triggered this conversation, and it's like, sure, that's been there for a while. Let's go ahead and do a release. But to Pete's point, we need to make sure when we're reviewing that, yeah, the engineer may be saying that it's ready, but is it ready? Certainly you have some developers that come through, they have multiple parcels, so allowing a partial release, well, it's all about investment, right? It allows them to free up that money to reinvest somewhere else. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that the inspections are adequate and that we don't run into those issues that Pete's mentioned. This is important to be in line with the state. The developer and actually the realtor and engineer pointed this out to us. And I appreciate them doing that. And it's got us to where we're at today. So it really is about aligning with state code, making sure we're following at least as a minimum.
In line with what Pete was saying, and I'm looking at this, as it's written right now, this 423, and not only does it not say that, all it says is the subdivider or developer provides written notice. That's all it says. And then the partial release has to be within 30 days. That's the time period specified. It doesn't say anything about whether the county inspects it or not.
Yeah, I think if you go look at the A, B, C, D in the
It's
state code,
All of some
I
of
think,
that, okay.
I mean, so I don't want to go too far in this, but like I said, we don't hold a lot of bonds. E&S are the main ones. I know on the road, I had a conversation with Matt on that road. I remember asking, it's been a long time ago, but they constructed that to engineered plans, VDOT, and just, it wasn't to be dedicated. And once they were finished, had VDOT come out, inspect it, certify it. It was cool. I mean, so they're, as far as I can remember from the conversation, they've built those roads and they will take those into the state system once they're ready, once everything's ready. So, yeah, this is just strictly on the
I think the holdback on that is the road's not finished completely down.
right. But what's been,
Everything is done there, because I was part of all that.
That's right.
It's been inspected.
Right.
E&S is done and all that.
What other kinds of bonds are we talking about then, other than road
Yeah,
bonds? Since you say we
well,
don't do those. for-
erosion sediment. This is what this bond was for, was an
Okay,
erosion
yeah.
sediment. Well, this is what kind of brought this conversation. was
And you can easily foresee major problems with that along the same lines that Pete was talking about too. I mean, all we have to do is have another one of those 1,000-year floods that we got every 2 years for a while.
Yeah.
There goes your erosion control.
Well, everything's stabilized, built to the engineering plans that were approved,
Once it's
stamped,
signed off,
architect, we've
okay.
inspected it, it's there. If he doesn't have it all, he's like, I'm gonna, that's the idea, is that, like Jonathan said, they could release some, put the money back into other improvements. But if it's, in my humble opinion, if it's built and we're happy with a portion of it, it's, for Madison, it's going to be kind of a rare occurrence if this happens. It was a large, I'm going to tell you, it's a $70,000 bond.
Yeah, once it's signed off, though, it's, according to the state, it's out of our hands. You've got to give them the
Right.
bond
But
money back. Yeah.
I wouldn't take it that we just look at it and they just send us, they don't just give us the letter and say, we're done.
Right.
Okay, good. No, it's not that, it's more complicated than that.
Once again, that comes back to the inspector as well, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, he's not going to release a partial one if it's not done,
Right. And you can't foresee other circumstances in the far future anyway. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I've learned a lot from Matt here even recently. Someone doesn't do it, there's provisions to put it on their tax bill, and if they don't pay that, then you can take a lien, and it's a pretty direct route. If you don't do the improvements that you're supposed to, and I mean, there's a lot of tools to get reimbursed or. So.
Yeah, in some ways, it sounds like we might be needing to bring him into some of the discussions that we're having, like with this changing from 4 on one road to 8 on one road.
Yep.
That provided about a 2-month delay before we realized that was already being done for the road standards. Okay, you have a second ordinance amendment proposed here?
Very simple, just because it's come up and not a big deal, but the mini storage units, that is a by right use off the top of my head, I think in industrial. In a lot of places, it's usually can be a business use. I thought adding it as a special use in business would be I don't want to say an easier path, just calling it industrial. I mean, some places do. It's not totally uncommon to call it industrial, but you still have to go through the same, whether you're rezoning to M1 industrial or getting a special use permit, ultimately it's the same process. I just thought it would be a little cleaner if we do have some storage, mini store. We're on 29. We're pretty centrally located. Apparently there's a huge storage shortage in the country. There's several people that are interested in the mini storage. I just thought it'd be a little easier to just say, look, come and get your special use permit. They can this one particular person can surely go and for the rezoning. But I just think it's a little cleaner process if it was, or I think most places put it as a special use in general business. But if it gives you a lot of heartburn, then it's.
And currently, the mini storage units are what, special use in M1?
Oh, I think it's by right in M1.
By right in M1,
Yeah.
okay.
Because Mr. O'Bannon he
Yeah,
rezoned.
right.
I think ideally a special use in B1 is probably the easiest way to handle it. But again, that's just my opinion.
So is this an item that you're recommending that we have a committee look at and make some recommendations, or?
I mean, sure, if you want to look at committee or just if there's I know everyone's not here, but if there's just a consensus, I think it's fairly straightforward. If it's something that there's a consensus with the commission, then, sort of like the bonding, it's something that we could probably move forward sooner rather than later. But again, I mean, whatever the pleasure of the plan commission is.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't just kind of maybe at the next, put it on the schedule for the next work session, and it would be an amendment, I guess. So we would have to go through the public hearing and the joint meeting and so forth. Okay. Additional items from the planning commission or the public. We did have a request. Jonathan, are you going to be able to give us a little update on the broadband situation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Barry is going to upload that for me.
Okay.
Some of the material, I don't claim to take authorship. I'm going to use some of the recent Firefly update, which will help touch on some of the other areas as soon as Alan brings that up. Alan, go through. I'll keep going through the slides. We'll get to the very end. Hold right there, please. Okay, as many of you may be aware, we had applied for a VATI grant for broadband services. You see two colors up there depicted. All of that was the VATI area. What you see in, whether you want to call that yellow or whatever color, that is currently the RISE project that Firefly will be providing fiber services or broadband services for. The darker color, well, it's more of an orange than it is a brown. That is the contingent area, meaning it was an area that was challenged. We had two service providers that challenged the VATI project. That was CenturyLink and Shentel. Recently, we learned, and most of that darker color that you see towards the Wolftown area, that does move into Graves Mill, but it's Wolftown, Hood, Graves Mill, then it kind of works its way to a small portion of Kirkusville and then jumps over onto West Hoover Road. That portion of Haywood is the darker color. Most of that is CenturyLink challenged area. CenturyLink is currently working with a memorandum of understanding that has Department of Housing and Community Development review, but it also has to be agreed upon by the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. They are representing many counties for this VATI round, and Madison is one of three counties that being Campbell and Greene counties adjoining with Madison, that CenturyLink has challenged. Right now, we're being told that they will offer 1 gig, similar to what is being required from Firefly. Those details are still being ironed out. Ultimately, if the parties agree to that MOU, then CenturyLink will build that out. They have the same timeline. I believe it's 36 months from award date to have that completed. If CenturyLink the MOU is not agreed to, that darker color you see will then turn to yellow, and it will be part of the Firefly project. There's some funding mentioned in this slide, but I'm not going to bore you with it other than summarizing the total local match, because this was a $25+ million project. The local match was a little over $2.5 million. All of that, the Board of Supervisors approved an ARPA spending plan, which essentially was a little over $2.5 million, is the local match that will be used for that project. Thank you, Alan. So if Firefly does all of that, so that means CenturyLink goes away, then that's $2.5 million for Firefly to build out the RISE project. If CenturyLink does it, Firefly's portion will only be $2.1 million, which represents the yellow Alan had in the prior slide. And then there's 400 and some thousand remaining that would go to CenturyLink to build out that portion. Shentel was the other company that challenged the VATI grant. Alan, go to the last slide that has the red outline, or the slide that has the red outline right there. If you could increase the size a little bit, that's a lot of uncovered area. That represents Etland, Syria, Nethers. Cardi is probably paying attention to this. Everything up that area. That's where Shentel, challenged. Had an interesting call on Friday. I've been after Chantel for a little bit since learning that they were backing out of the challenged area that they put forth in Rappahannock County. And I wanted to know what was the intent for Madison. I officially have in writing as of Tuesday, and I shared that with DHCD, that Chantel will be pulling out. Therefore, that will open that back up for service. The question is that going to be covered in VATI, the current round? The answer is probably no. We are looking at that section to be covered as part of VATI round 2, if you will, or FY 2023 funding. The Board of Supervisors just recently directed me to send a letter of intent to what I found out today, that it's going to be Department of Housing Community Development, that we will apply for that next VATI round. Alan, can you bring up that other email I share with you, sir? It's going to be the FY 2023 VATI timeline. Some of this work is already underway. So there's a lot of public comment that's gone into this already. The most important takeaway, the upload and download speeds, I think it was like 25 up and 3 down or so forth.
Yeah.
That has changed. They are now requiring 120. And that was one of the main reasons that Chantel said, look, we're backing out. The numbers are just not there to go out and build an infrastructure with the existing criteria, knowing that 120 definition has changed things for the FY 2023, which means, you would have an overlap area essentially. But that actually is a good thing for citizens of the county and or business owners who are looking to use that service for businesses. I think it levels the playing field. So we're going to move forward, send that letter of intent. And as you can see, notice of applications are due by July 7th. And that's just a notice that you're going to apply. They will have that well in advance before then. And then by August 25th, the applications are due. So those are the next steps that we're currently in. And then the remaining timeline is when the DHCD reviews them, post the applications. Those who may want to challenge it, there's an October timeline for that walks you through the rebuttal phase in November. And ultimately in December, which is similar to what they did this past year, there will be an announcement of an award. And that's where localities will know who they will be served by, those speeds, the amount of funding. It will be what it looks like an 80-20, meaning 80% will come from some type of grant. The 20% can be private and local match. So I'm not sure what Madison's share will be. I have some upcoming dialogue with the board. Most likely we would look to recommend an RFP. So we'll put that out there to give a chance, once we gave that notice of intent to apply, that service providers can start responding. So we know well in advance for December, kind of what that service will look like and estimated cost. So that's currently where we're at. So feel bad for Chantel, but I think that's going to open up some areas of opportunity for those who are, you didn't see a lot on that coverage map through Firefly. Firefly will start soon. I believe they said it within the next month. Notices will go out to Pratt's. A lot of these notices you get in the mail, don't think your service is going to happen overnight. It's to let you know they're doing make-ready work. So make-ready work, they have to get these main trunk line components in first before they can start getting service to homes. I don't want to commit to whose orange lines are those. You never know where it's Facebook or Google and I'm being honest with you. If you went to some of the RDOF awarded areas, you saw these other components where even Elon Musk is in the territory, was awarded some money. So for Madison's portion, Firefly will get started first. We don't have a schedule yet. As soon as the dashboard is ready to start showing where construction will go,
we will provide that information to the public. We do know that they're going to be doing some make-ready work in Standardsville substation soon, depending on CenturyLink and that whole situation. If Firefly were to get that, it might make that area of broadband deployment start a lot sooner. So that's where we're at with broadband. We know where the Firefly areas will be currently. It depends on if it's expanded, meaning if CenturyLink is allowed to build or if they are denied, and then that remaining portion becomes of the VATI project. But Etland and Syria and Nethers, that's going to be determined through this next round of VATI. Yes, Francois.
Can you remind me what technology CenturyLink is? Is it a fiber or is it a satellite? Or what is it?
We are still working through that. I believe it was initially fixed wireless, but they do have fiber mentioned in their proposal. We're trying to nail down those specifics. Some of their MOUs that's been going back and forth. It had some speeds listed, then they took away, and it says refer to FCC guidelines. I said, wait a minute, we want to make sure what you're given is comparable to, Firefly or others who've already committed. I'm not sure if all of it's going to be fiber or if it's, a fixed wireless. They have assured me, though, they're looking at 1 gig criteria, which I believe is similar to Firefly. What I like about Firefly, and this I should say in full disclosure, I don't have Firefly stock or a T-shirt or any real estate owned by them. They come out and tell you what their rates are. Alan, you could put that on the slide. I think they have their rates on one of the slides per month, whatever they charge. There's no data cap. But the VATI rules do not require them to list their cost to the customer. It only requires them to list the speed. So that's the big takeaway. But I do like where Firefly tells you up front kind of what you're looking for, a monthly plan, if you want to add phone or if it's unlimited, what that is. So I'm not sure if CenturyLink, Francois, will be all completely fiber at this time. My hopes is we should know before that MOU is executed. The MOU is getting ready to be sent to our wonderful attorney to review and ultimately given to the board for some discussion before I could be authorized to sign it. And I will say that will have to happen soon because part of the VATI grant, which Firefly is connected to, they have to make sure, that's a punch list item. Are they going to be awarded that additional area or is it CenturyLink? So that decision will have to be made soon. I would guess sometime in June or July, be looking for board action. You're welcome.
On the map, there was especially along 29 and 230, there were unshaded areas.
A lot of those areas are already served. So whether it's Comcast,
So that's
for example,
Comcast claiming service. Okay.
There is a company, and I'm going to have to ask DHCD about this. They shared a link for some of the RDOF funding, and interesting enough, and yes, I live in Locustdale, so my eyes looked at Locustdale.
Yeah.
But there's a company called FiberLight. So I've got to dig a little more into that. FiberLight wasn't listed necessarily as the provider, but you get into all these terms, and dark fiber was one of those terms. So I'm not sure if it's a trunk line that you can pull off of, but particularly those areas you see that are not shaded or areas that have options.
Yeah, I was wondering if that had changed because the last I heard, Comcast was still claiming that they were serving in my area and they don't come all the way down the road. So,
What is your area?
near Radiant?
Near Radiant.
Yeah.
Okay.
They go, the little road that I'm on, they go as far as the first big stream and they stop.
Okay. Yeah, they've done that over the years in the county, and generally you just have to keep at them. But yeah, Comcast, I was a customer who had them before. Now I'm one of those HughesNet stories.
Yeah.
So
Been there,
definitely
still there.
the county is feeling this effort has been around for a while. It's just finally, seeing it come to fruition. So we want to make sure speeds are the same, timeline is the same. And that's what we're looking for when we're negotiating these MOUs.
Yeah, it kind of bugs me a little bit about Comcast because one of my neighbors further up the road actually inquired, and they told him how many thousands of dollars it would cost to bring the line to his house. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It wasn't the low one number
there's
thousands.
plenty of homes in the area where I'm at and goes back to Oak Park area and they're not interested.
Right, right.
So. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're
That was
welcome.
Quite educational. Okay, any other items, new or old, from the planning commission? We have a few steadfast members of the public out there. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam Gilmore, Piedmont Environmental Council. Well, I'm just here tonight to introduce my colleague, Don McCown, who's going to be taking over land use responsibilities for Madison County. Don also works in Orange for us. Don, one second.
Yeah, just quickly, thanks for the opportunity to say hi. Just like I'm sure Adam has been, I welcome hearing from commissioners or supervisors, staff, residents too, just kind of what's on your mind. If there are things that y'all think pieces to be looking into or that I should check out or something, please, don't hesitate to be in touch. But I like to stay engaged.
Okay.
In that, so.
Yeah, you obviously picked a good night to introduce yourself. Yeah. All right. Any other public comment? Any other comment from the planning commission? Can I get a motion to adjourn? I got two. A second? All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much.
Who was the first and second on that? It all blended
First, yeah.
together.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Who was the first on that?